I've got a new Super 8 digital cartridge with a new lens, and now I can take it outside and shoot some footage. Keep watching to find out more. Hi, my name's Jenny List, and it's time for another exciting instalment of What's on Jenny's Bench. I left you last time with this cartridge with a rather poor quality M12 webcam. It was a proof of concept to see whether an M12 lens would work in a Super 8 camera. Since then, I have produced this one. It refines the process and puts a better M12 lens with proper focusing to zoom right in on the focal plane of the camera. Now, what I've done is, if I can remove the Raspberry Pi, I've taken my camera sensor, which is the same sensor I used on an earlier version. I have put the M12 lens in front of it and I have focused it in there. But first, I don't have a sponsor for this channel, so I'd like to draw your attention to something else I'm involved in. Trans Rescue is a small non-profit that helps get transgender people like me out of dodgy places worldwide. We exist on donations and we need your help. Please, if you can, take a moment after this video, the link is below, and give us some help. Thanks very much. Now back to the film cartridge. I started by printing a new cartridge with a much thinner floor. My previous one had a thicker floor and a space underneath for the film winder. Now I've just got a hole. I put at the back a platform which I could mount my sensor on. So I just used a sticky on the sensor and a little bit of masking tape. I then got an off-the-shelf M12 lens holder and just screwed it on and started playing with lenses. I pretty soon found out that with the longer focal lengths that I needed, I couldn't focus at a macro distance with just this lens holder. So what I did was I had to create an extender piece, which is this piece here, which I 3D printed. My first extender piece was a bit short, but I ended up with this length and a 16mm lens, which focuses in quite nicely on the focal plane of the camera. And there was a fantastic moment where I set up my Tux and Club Marta model, which you'll probably be familiar with if you've watched the rest of this series, and was able to first of all focus in on it. You can get a very sharp picture. I can read the Club Marta text quite well, and everything's great. I've done it. So I lashed up a big external battery to my test camera. In due course, I will put an 18650 or something in there, make it self-contained, but for now it's just lashing up with a USB cable. And I went out on my bicycle, went a little cycle through the woods, and actually got some quite reasonable footage. Now, you'll first of all notice that the focus isn't perfect. Now, this is straightforward, it's down to me. It's very important. This is effectively becoming part of the lens system of the camera. And I think it's fairly obvious that I set up the focus on the Tux without... I set up the focus on the Tux without having the focus on the camera perfectly set on the distance. So effectively what I've done is I've created a system that's only in focus at one focus setting on the camera. And as further you go away from that focus setting on the camera, the more out of focus it gets. This is me learning about how 8mm camera focusing works, and I'm going to have to go back and redo the focus and I'll have a better result. But I've now got a film cartridge that the optical part works. It needs some refinements, but it works. There's also an issue on some of the footage of the automatic light metering having difficulty with high light levels. You'll see it oscillating in and out. One very good feature of this lens is that I no longer get shutter artifacts. I've solved that problem, so I'm very pleased with that. So this is the basis of a working 8mm digital film cartridge. So what's next? You'll see I've attached a power cable to the Raspberry Pi 02 and it plugs into one of those tiny little 5-volt LiPo boards. I need to find a LiPo battery that fits in there. An 18650 does fit in the space, but there's not quite enough room for the battery clips at the end. I'm going to have to do a little bit of engineering to do that if I want to use an 18650. There is enough space on top for the battery board, the 18650 charger board and 5-volt board to sit on top, but I may not be able to use an 18650. I don't really want to use a LiPo pouch cell if I can avoid it, because I always feel slightly unsafe when I use those things, but if I have to do that, I'll do that. But otherwise, this is ready to go. So what's next? I think fix the focus, fix the battery, probably fix some kind of software system. The way I filmed this was I set it running on the bench, set up the Raspberry Pi, fired off the command, is it libcamera? And then with the camera running in my backpack, I jumped on the bike and cycled out into the countryside and then took the shot. I ended up with about 40 minutes of video, most of which was just black because the camera shutter wasn't running. Now, obviously, that's not perfect. I kind of favour the idea of turning on the cartridge and just shooting, because ultimately I've got almost endless video storage on this SD card compared to the sort of 3 minutes that I'd have on a 50mm film cartridge. So that doesn't matter, and I can go in the editing and I can cut them out. I appreciate people want to be able to press the button and it starts the recording so that they don't have all that black footage. I'm erring towards a light sensor and a photodiode that triggers it, rather than a trigger on the film winder, for the simple reason that there isn't much space in there. But I'll see what comes out of that. I need a better software solution than plugging it into a monitor and a keyboard and firing off the command. That's absolutely certain. Anyway, I think I can claim this as a success. The story of this digital cartridge isn't finished, but we're a lot closer to having a usable digital cartridge that you can drop into any camera and just start filming. My next video probably won't be on this project. It'll probably be on the single 8 cartridge project, because there have been some developments on that side too, but that's for another time. Meanwhile, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you then.